Right, kicking off segment number 3, column, is the Eagles coming off an overtime win in the division against the Commanders. They're going on the road to SoFi against the Rams, who've been very impressive. Came back, after seeing the Colts come back against them last weekend, found a way to win in overtime. They're hosting the Eagles. The Eagles are still not as convincing as they were last season. Is there a shock on the cards here, or bearing in mind how well the Rams are playing?
There could be, and yeah, while the Eagles aren't, playing as well as they were last season, they are annoying all the right people. Jack Del Rio losing his mind. It's unfair. How dare they be able to do this? How many teams have tried the tush push at this point, right? And how many other teams have failed? The Eagles can do it because of the players that they have. If Jalen Hurts wasn't built the way Jalen Hurts is, if Jason Kelsey wasn't the center, like loads of other teams have tried and failed to do that, including your Giants, who, like it's not as easy. People are like, oh, this is a gimme. Well, if it was a gimme, everybody would be doing it. It's the unique way in which, the Eagles have the players there. If that changed, if Jalen Hurts was out for a couple of weeks, they wouldn't be able to run it with the backup in the same way. If Jason Kelsey was out, they wouldn't be able to run it in the same way. And I see, they're also annoying Nick Wright, who is obviously the Chiefs' biggest fan. So despite not playing,
he's annoying in himself, Colin. We don't need
to. Despite the fact that they aren't playing well, they're still winning, which is quite something. When you're like, yeah, it doesn't look the same, but you're sitting at 4-0, and you're like, they have a gear to go up. That they're kind of finding their feet under the new coordinators. I think it'd be a huge test. Puka Nacua has been outstanding. They've got Cooper Kupp coming back. What will that look like? Lots of talk around that. Jordan Rodriguez has done some pieces on that. It will be interesting to see how it goes, and it won't be easy for the Eagles. But I'm going to back them this week. I've been a big fan of what they have done, and I think they continue to do just enough. But I think this is a game where, the narrative and what we've seen from the Rams means everything has changed on them, right? So I don't. If you asked me this back in August, I'd said, "Oh yeah, this is the Eagles definitely," and it'd be a huge upset for the Rams. I don't think it'd be a huge upset now at all. I think people would just look and go, "Oh yeah, that was coming."
Similar to what you said about the last one with the Cards hosting the Bengals, this would have been a gimme when we were looking at this. When we did our picks, way too early picks, we would have never looked at this game as a Rams victory or a Bengals victory in that regard to the last game. I am going to go with the Rams. We've all been very impressed with them, and I think in particular Matthew Stafford in terms of how he's played, because Matthew Stafford has come back. I knew Matthew Stafford was in for a good season when the tours before the season started and Cooper Kupp was ruled out. He got really agitated in that press conference, and it was like the Matthew Stafford we saw a couple of years ago. He's out to make a point. That bull rush, well, you throw it in there, that looks like that's going to be one for the rules committee next offseason. Looks like they are definitely looking to get that one out the door, as in the play is gone, because they tried to get it out the door this offseason, and it looks like, what the NFL's like, they gradually start the process, they put it in, people don't vote it in, and then Roger gets what he wants. By all accounts, he wants this gone come next season. So keep an eye on that one. For this game, the Eagles have been getting, I wouldn't say have been getting away, but that's unfair, because a measure of a great team is to win games when you're not playing well. They struggled last weekend, albeit putting up the points. Defensively, they struggled. I think the Rams have played well in SoFi, despite the constraints around home field advantage, and a lot of the crowd will be Eagles fans, similar to where it was with the 49ers came in. But they gave the 49ers an awful fright in that game. And I think they do the same here, but this time I think to get over the line, I'm going to go with the Rams to upset the odds and win this game. Some people might think this one is also one that could cause a bit of an upset in a store on Sunday, Colin, because the Chiefs have not been playing as well as we've seen in the past. They've started the season quite slowly, despite their 3-1 record. And I felt on Monday night, it was kind of similar to Josh Allen on Sunday night. The Sunday night performance by Patrick Mahomes was very Josh Allen in the first game, throwing it up there, and they did everything to give the Jets an opportunity to win the game. They came out the right side of it in the end, and they go into Minnesota. The Vikings are coming off their first win of the season last weekend against the Panthers, so renewed energy within that organization that they can get back on track and back in the playoff hunt, whether it's a wild card or winning the NFC North. Do you see this game as one that could be a bit of a banana skin for the Chiefs? Remember this time last year they lost going into the Colts, and people were surprised with that. Would it be a shock if the Vikings were to find a way to get back to the form of last year and win this game?
It would be a surprise, but would it be a shock? No. And I think, because, right, we know who the Chiefs are, and because they always end up playing it would seem the AFC Championship game at home, we have massive expectations on them. And sometimes I think their fans have these, ridiculous expectations. They're going to go unbeaten. But we know that the Chiefs deliberately look to peak later in the season. I mean, it's always the way that Andy Reid kind of goes about his business, certainly since Patrick Mahomes came in there. And so I wouldn't be overly concerned with the way the Chiefs have started, because they do this. They try things in the first couple of weeks. They're a lot looser. And remember, their defense is ridiculously young. They have the youngest average starters in the league, so that takes time. I think are the Vikings capable of beating the Chiefs? Absolutely, right? Because the Vikings can score points. We have seen that in the past, but they have, I suppose, in Brian Flores, a coordinator who likes to send pressure. Sometimes that can work, but generally Patrick Mahomes is pretty good at diagnosing it. The Chiefs, I saw a stat saying they have the most drops in the league currently. They have 13. I do think it might be interesting to see if they might look to bring somebody in before the trade deadline. But with Patrick Mahomes and Andy Reid, I just feel that they go in, they start as favorites, and as a Broncos fan, would I like to see the Vikings win? Yes. I just don't think they will. I think ultimately they'll come up a little short.
Right, I'm going for 2 in a row on the shot count. I'm going to go with the Vikings, because the Vikings do things in the league that makes no sense to the Vikings fans, to any NFL fan, and that is they lose games against teams that they should be beating, and then sometimes they navigate victories against teams that you should never expect them to beat. And right now the Chiefs, yeah, you're right, Colin, they will come again. They'll peak towards the end of the season. We'll be sitting here in January cold, but they'll be potentially going to the AFC Championship game and hosting it in Arrowhead. The reality is they're not playing well right now. The week before it was against the Bears, so we'll take that one out. The other games, the Jags victory on the road, they struggled to only put 13 points against the Lions at home. Just couldn't get it going. And I just haven't been impressed with them. And the Vikings need this one. The Vikings can somehow pull this off. They're really, for me, then they'd be really back in the mix. And at some stage, Kirk Cousins has to stop giving the ball away. I think he has the most counts in terms of now, because Jimmy Garoppolo was out last weekend. In terms of turnovers, he's got the highest count in the league. That has to change. He needs to be more sensible and keep hold of the ball. So I'll go with the Vikings. I think it'll be a high-scoring game. I think the Vikings come out the right side of it, cause the shock. And we shouldn't be surprised, I don't think, because this is the nature of Vikings. All Vikings fans will tell us that is the case. And this brings us to the next one. And Colin, it's your Broncos at home hosting the Jets. And Jets fans are a bit kind of re-energized after the performance last weekend. They feel like they let one slip, which is great in a way to say that they let a game slip that they could have had. There's some kind of precarious decisions by referees, and they're a bit enamored by that and annoyed on Monday morning. But they're also very relieved to see their quarterback put in a performance last Sunday night. And if it wasn't for maybe that muffed fumble on the snap, they may have won that game. Do you see a scenario where Russell Wilson and the guys will struggle against this Jets defense, who can put it up to any team on their day? Or do you think coming back home after having the 2 losses earlier in the season, but navigating the comeback in Chicago last weekend, will have taken a little bit of pressure off Sean Payton, and they did put up some numbers offensively? Can they keep it going this week and beat this Jets team?
I think they can. I mean, again, before the season started, this was kind of a mouth-watering fixture, especially with Sean Payton's comments. But it's really been dulled because both teams, especially for the Jets, obviously losing Aaron Rodgers, but neither team have been particularly good. Yeah, the Jets put it up to the Chiefs, and lots of people will point to refereeing decisions and various other things, but ultimately they couldn't get it done. I I think there is enormous pressure on Sean Payton around this one because he made the comments that he did. I mean, and he said what fans were thinking about how bad a job Hackett had done, but that got everybody's back up. But he's got to go and do it. The Jets have got Zach Wilson there. Like, if the Jets win this, what's Sean Payton's excuse going to be? And Bill Parcells is supposed to be his mentor. Bill Parcells' big thing was accountability, no excuses, be prepared, change the culture, etc., etc. I think the Broncos have the offensive weapons to do it. I think the issues this season have not been Russell Wilson, right? I think Russell Wilson's been fine. He's been good in certain games, but it's the defense that is the real issue. I don't think the Jets are good enough to take advantage of that. Other teams will, but I don't think the Jets are. And despite how bad the Broncos are defensively, they go to 2-3.
I agree with you. I think Broncos win this game. Like, Zach Wilson had a really strong game a couple of years ago in his opening season against the Titans. It caused a big shock when it looked like their season was spiraling. He had a really strong performance last year in winning game, and obviously he had a strong performance last weekend. But that's where we're at. We've seen one swallow and all that. The inconsistencies are there. Can he put two? Can he piece two strong performances together back to back weeks? I don't believe he can, and unless we see it. How can you? You can't trust it. We've seen enough now coverage that we just can't trust the guy. I think the Broncos defense makes it very tough for him on Sunday, and they get into it. They find ways to pick him off again because his interception count, maybe with the exception of last weekend, has been quite poor. And I think the Broncos need this one. I think they get back to 2-3, and in a division outside of maybe the Chiefs in the long run is there for a team to push on. And for all the flaws they've had over the course of the past 2 weeks, maybe giving up those 70 points is the best thing that happened, and making that strong comeback last weekend. I'll go Broncos to win this game on Sunday evening. So it brings us to Sunday Night Football, and arguably the best game of the weekend. I looked at the fixtures and I said, the Bills game in London is the best one, but this really is the best one. Sunday Night Football, Cowboys, having come off last weekend's win at home to the Patriots, a really dominant performance defensively, go on the road against arguably the best team in the NFC right now, and that is the 49ers, who are 4-0. Another game in Santa Clara. Reminds you of the games in the 90s with Aikman and Young, and we had the playoff game the past 2 years, and the 49ers seem to be coming out the right side of these victories. Is the trend going to continue on Sunday? Do you see the 49ers moving to 5-0?
I do. I'll be honest. And Fred mightn't thank me for that one. But ultimately, I think Mike McCarthy is an issue at the highest level. Look, if the Cowboys were to win this, would it be a shock? No, because these are two high-powered teams. But to lose Diggs, it's against an offense like the 49ers, it's a real issue. And before we, I was talking to JP Costa, one of the things we were talking about was the way in which the 49ers and the Dolphins kind of approach is similar in some ways, right? But so they both use a lot of motion. They try to get guys going. But ultimately for the Dolphins, that they're looking to do is to hit a player in stride so that he's gone, right? With the 49ers, they're essentially getting it into a guy's hands where he's 5 or 10 yards down the field, and then he's breaking tackles, because that's how they're built. And it's fascinating kind of to see these two guys, Shanahan and Mike McDaniel, who are obviously thinking similar ways, but have different personnel and ultimately different philosophies. But right now, the 49ers are the best team in football. They are, the issue for them is around staying healthy. But Christian McCaffrey, I believe, right now is the MVP in the league. He is the absolute difference maker. He makes everything work for them. And I saw Jerry Rice getting a little bit chippy about the fact, that McCaffrey is breaking some of his records and saying, well, if he got the ball 20 times, I think he has a point. I still remember what Jerry Rice did to the Broncos in the Super Bowl with only 7 touches, three touchdowns, 140 yards. My God, if he touched the ball 20 times, I don't even want to imagine what that could have been. But McCaffrey is magic, and they've got Debo, and they just get at you every which way. Brock Purdy has been very impressive thus far. Defense has been really good. This will be a tight game. The Cowboys, they enjoy the bright lights. The issue with the Cowboys is always those smaller games, and when they get to the playoffs. But I think the 49ers will come through this.
The Thursday night game a couple of weeks ago in which the Giants played against the 49ers, in fairness to the Giants defensively, for a period of time, they got in Brock Purdy's face and put him off. And there was a number of throws that could have led to interception. A better team with a better defense would have taken advantage of that situation that night. And just think about what Micah Parsons and that front seven can do if they're on their game on Sunday night. Because Brock Purdy, for all the impressive performance we've seen, yet to see him being really under duress. Like, we probably would have saw that in that championship game if it wasn't for the injury. But you're right, it's very difficult to go against them. You've got McCaffrey there. You got 4 touchdowns last weekend. Debo, Brandon Ayuk had a great game last weekend coming off the shoulder injury. And Kittle really hasn't got going yet. What's annoying me slightly about the 49ers is you talk about chippiness. The players are coming out with comments, and they're coming out with comments about other teams and other players. The Giants have fallen into that over the course of the last few weeks between Daniel Jones. Then they got into some of the defensive stuff and other teams and players. Just focus on your own game. Focus on who you're playing. Don't be worrying about other teams. You can take care of them come the end of the season. They're only 4-0. They haven't won anything yet, so maybe they just need to take a step back. But look, you can't argue they're the most dominant team right now. I'm not sure they're the best team in the NFL. Like, I think right now I would put the Bills ahead of them because of the explosiveness of that offense. But in this particular game, I'll go 49. I think it might be a lot closer. I think the Cowboys will put up a real fight here. I think they'll give a very good count to themselves. But I think ultimately 49ers find a way to navigate victory on Sunday Night Football, moving to 5-0. Monday Night Football. It's Monday night. It is, yeah, Monday Night Football. This is a cracker, isn't it? This is the one we've been waiting for. This will certainly get you out of your bed at 1 o'clock in the morning on Monday night. It's the Packers going on the road into Vegas. And I know how much you love Vegas, Colin. I love Vegas. But in this game, what are we going to see from Vegas? Because we were talking about coaches under pressure, and we're talking about maybe Eberflus losing his job. Like you touched on it rightly so before last season, and even this season. The Raiders had the money to spawn duties. They would have relieved their head coach of his duties by now. Where do you see this game going? Because, Devontae Adams will have a point to prove against his old team. I agree with you. You threw O'Connell under the bus, but what I would take away from all that is O'Connell is an impressive looking quarterback right now. If he plays on Sunday, can he cause a shock and beat this Packers team, who have been up and down, lost last weekend to the Lions, won the week before that? They're not a team that are feared, I would say. Can the Raiders cause a shock in this one?
Well, I think in terms of Vegas, I've got this headset on because it's like the helicopter ride over the Grand Canyon. I think we take very different approaches to time in Vegas. But if the head coach was a different head coach, the Raiders could. But they're lumbered with Josh McDaniels, and like, it was so idiotic to say what he said about Aidan O'Connell, who was, again, I'll point it out, young QB making his debut. And again, McDaniels lied at the podium, okay? He said, we went out of our way for the majority of his snaps. We had 2 guys on Khalil Mack. Do you know how many times they had 2 guys on Khalil Mack? 3 times out of 63 snaps that Khalil, right? Players pick up on that, and players will know you're lying. and players will suss you out, because if you're authentic and you're genuine, even if you're out of your depth, players will continue to play for you. But when you throw players under the bus, when you lie about players, when you pretend that it wasn't your game plan that led to it, that it was solely on the players, no, that doesn't work. Things are all wrong. You saw that video of Stephen O'Rourke who arguing with Mark Davis about the sacking Josh McDaniels. He should be out in his ear. He should be the first coach sacked. And I wouldn't be at all surprised if Devonta Adams ended up going elsewhere towards the trade deadline. I don't think things are right there. I don't think they will be right until they get rid of Josh McDaniels. I think one of the other interesting things around this year has been how angry coaches have gotten so quickly, right? Because you've had Brian Dable throwing the tablet. You had Sean Payton getting very snippy very quickly. You had Brandon Staley. You had Matt LaFleur, and you had Josh McDaniels. So that I think is interesting. But Josh's seat of all the head coaches, and that includes Brandon Staley and Eberflus, Josh McDaniels' seat should be the hottest.
Is it Mourinho? Like when Mourinho wins, he takes all the credit, but when the team loses, he puts it back on the players. Is that the scenario that we're dealing with here? If they walk off that comeback victory last weekend, is he acclaimed himself as, look what I can do for this Raiders team, and then he throws a young quarterback on the bus? I didn't think he played that bad. I thought he played,
I thought he started out poorly, right? Because they got, again, the Chargers got enormous pressure on him, but I thought he stuck to it. It would have been so easy for him to drop his head. It would have been so easy to do that because things weren't going right. And he stuck in there and he gave him a chance. And ultimately it doesn't work out, but you can't pin it on a guy making his debut. I mean, again, this wasn't the number one overall pick. This wasn't Andrew Luck. This wasn't Peyton Manning. This wasn't some massive free agent acquisition who you were just bringing in. Like, this is a kid making his NFL debut, and this is what you're pinning him on. So it's Mourinho without the success. This would be like one of Mourinho's coaches. Like, Bill Belichick is the architect of it. Josh has had 2 bites of the head coach cherry, and he's been an unmitigated disaster in both instances.
It must be love. So is it love to win this game on Sunday night with on the other side of the fence with the Packers coming off that loss? Because the Packers, for me, have been exactly what we thought they'd. They would be a joy to watch at times. They would kind of surprise us by the nature of, and I always felt Jordan Love would be better than what we saw in the past. He's had that extra year and a couple of years to mature and get used to the fact that, the situation he's going to take over. And right now, like last week, he was in a really difficult situation. The offensive line wasn't really bad in that Thursday night football game. He was sacked time and time again, and still kind of found his feet a little bit in the second half. Where do you see this one? Do you see the Packers, or do you think it's a Raiders victory Monday night?
No, I have the Packers winning this. I think the Raiders are all at sea. I really do. I think that the players, I just don't think they're going to play for him. I think it's going to get worse and worse, that situation there. I think for the Packers, you're right. They're kind of what we expect in that they're up and down. I think they've got an issue with their defensive coordinator. But I think Jordan Love he's been fine. The only thing I would say is I would imagine they are probably wishing that they had given themselves maybe another year of Jordan Love. And this might be where we see the franchise tag. But again, it's early, but he has been up and down. We need to see more from him. But the Packers they've got a head coach who is competent. Yeah, he's been snippy at times, but you've got a young, like, Jordan Love is the most experienced guy there, right? They're so young. They will be up and down, but yeah, they're going to beat the Raiders.
Yeah, they've done it not very quickly. They've got a lot of these young wide receivers. Reed had a big game last weekend. Again, players further down the order in terms of when they came in. Yeah, I'm with you on this. I'm going to go Packers. I think the Packers close out week 5 with a victory on Monday Night Football. That brings us to the end of our week 5 preview. Obviously, we've got a couple of podcasts coming up in the course of the few days. DJ, got Costa coming up in terms of discussing the Jags. Nate Geary's coming on, which you call him, discussing the Bills ahead of Sunday's game. 2 good podcasts to listen out for.
Yeah, and you had Phoebe on as well.
Right.
We have podcasts that go out 7 days a week. So for anyone listening, definitely do check those out. We kind of cover a variety of topics. There's an instant reaction podcast that goes out on Sunday night. Shane Brennan has a podcast on Tuesdays. Obviously, then we have our live shows, but we always get guests on as well to talk about different topics. And if you do enjoy the podcast, please do rate, review, and subscribe wherever you listen. Wherever it makes a real difference, it helps other people to find us, or just tell a friend. There's lots of people out there who are into the NFL in Ireland but are unaware of the Irish NFL show, and you can make a real difference if you were to let people know about us.
Yeah, sounds great. Really appreciate it of people who will do that for the show. Okay, that's it for now. I'm looking forward to Sunday in Tottenham column, and we'll chat on Tuesday when we get back into what happens this weekend.
Okie doke, we'll leave it there. So.